welcome to another video about the wonderful world of Latin. Today we're going to learn about Leonardo da Vinci, his Vitruvian Man, Vitruvius, and the beauties of proportions. The Vitruvian Man is an iconic drawing by Leonardo da Vinci from around 1490 CE. It is also known as Le Proporzioni del Corpo Umano Secondo Vitruvio, or the proportions of the human body following Vitruvius. The text above and below the drawing describe the proportions of the human body according to the ancient Roman architect Vitruvius. Vitruvius was an architectus, a job which involved a broader workload than the modern architect, and he wrote the book De Architectura, or on architecture, in the late 1st century BCE. Both Vitruvius and da Vinci recorded many proportions for the human body, and they agreed on most of them. Da Vinci added 4 proportions based on his own measurements, and we will discuss some of their disagreements later. These proportions can be compared to the body scans of approximately 65,000 U.S. Air Force recruits from February 2011 to November 2016. And most of the proportions are pretty close to the modern measurements. It is also conceivable that Vitruvius and da Vinci rounded their measurements to the nearest integer, whereas that was not necessary with modern technology. Aside from rounding, we can explain some of the difference because of the interests of da Vinci and Vitruvius. Da Vinci was interested in Vitruvius's proportions not only due to his own anatomical studies, but also as an artist. For both da Vinci and Vitruvius, these were ideal proportions for creating the most beautiful images of bodies. The idea that the most beautiful images should be based on proportions observed from nature goes back to at least the 5th century BCE Greek sculptor Polykleitos. His Doryphorus, or spear-bearer sculpture, illustrates his ideal proportions, which he carefully recorded in his treatise The Canon. Polykleitos' book, however, no longer survives. However, from other testimonia, it's clear that his ideas convey that beauty comes from all the elements of the body being in proportion to one another, as well as to the whole, and that an error in the size or position of one item will ruin the larger image. Vitruvius is our most detailed and thorough source for these ancient ideals of proportion, and he also seems to combine a few systems of proportions, including one influenced by Pythagorean philosophers who love numbers. Let's examine what Vitruvius has to say about the proportions and the ideal of symmetria. Vitruvius defined symmetria as the proper agreement among the members of the work itself and the correspondence in measurement between the separate parts and the appearance of the whole figure. I continue the modern convention of translating symmetria with the derivative symmetry. We will illustrate Vitruvius's ideas using da Vinci's drawing, since he clearly took care to illustrate it well with precise lines, tick marks for measurements, a compass, and calipers. This is what Vitruvius had to say about the human body, and nature inspires the idea of symmetria or symmetry. The design of a temple depends on symmetry, the logic of which must be most carefully understood by the architect. It comes from proportion, in Greek analogia. Proportion is a correspondence among the measures of the members of an entire work and of the whole work to a certain part selected as standard. From this result the principles of symmetry. Without symmetry and proportion, no temple can have any logic to its design unless it has a precise relation between its members, as in the case of the limbs of a well-shaped human. For nature has designed the human body in such a way that the face, from the chin to the top of the forehead and lowest roots of hair, is 1/10 part of the whole height. Likewise, the palm of the hand from the wrist to the end of the middle finger is just as large. The head from the chin to the crown, 1/8 part, with the lowest neck from the top of the chest to the lowest roots of hair, 1/6 part. From the middle of the chest to the top of the crown is 1/4. Moreover, for the height of the face itself, 1/3 part is from the bottom of the chin to the bottom of the nostrils, The nose from the bottom of the nose to the line between the eyebrows is the same size. From that line to the bottom of the roots of the hair, the forehead is likewise the same. The size of the foot is a sixth of the size of the body, a cubit a fourth, and the chest is likewise a fourth. The other limbs also have their own symmetrical proportions, with the use of which ancient painters and famous sculptors pursued great and limitless praise. To pause for a second, you may have noticed that Vitruvius says a foot is 1/6 of the body's height, but Da Vinci drew it as 1/7. Da Vinci's shorter measurement goes from the bottom of the foot to the lowest hairline, but Vitruvius's longer measurement goes from the bottom of the foot to the top of the head. It is, of course, longer than the drawing's foot. Vitruvius may also have preferred 1/6 because he believes that 6 is a perfect number, as we will see later. Let's return to Vitruvius's text. Similarly, the members of a holy temple ought to have a proportional, measured correspondence between individual parts and the general sum of their whole magnitude. Again, the center of the human body is naturally the navel. For if a human were lying down with hands and feet extended, and the center of a circle is placed on the navel, the digits of both hands and feet are touched by the line of the circumference. In the way that the human body yields a circular outline, so too a square figure can be found in it. For if we measure from the bottom of the foot to the top of the head, the measurement of the outstretched hands is reported. The width will be the same as the height, just as open areas which are squared by rule. To pause for a second, we need to talk about another divergence between Vitruvius and Da Vinci. Vitruvius says the navel is half as tall as a human, and Da Vinci does indeed center the circle on the navel. Da Vinci, though, says the groin is half as tall as the human, so he centered the square on the groin. Da Vinci clarifies that the navel will be half of a human's height if the man opens his legs so far that the height of the human's head is 1/14 of the human's height, and extends his arm upwards. Thus Da Vinci provides two poses for the Vitruvian Man, as would seem to be required by Vitruvius's text. When modern scholars compared the measurements taken of thousands of U.S. Air Force recruits, Da Vinci was closer to these modern measurements than Vitruvius for the height of the groin. Let's return to what Vitruvius says about the ideal proportions of human bodies and buildings. Therefore, since nature designed the human body so that the limbs respond by proportion to the whole figure, it seems that the ancients reasonably established that, in the perfection of buildings, each member should have an exact proportion to the whole building's figure. Therefore, since in all their works they handed down the proper arrangements, they especially did so for the temples of the gods, as both merits and faults of these works usually remain forever. And what's more, they gathered the proportionate measurements, which seem necessary in all works, from the members of the body, as the finger or inch, palm, foot, and cubit. They arranged these into the perfect number, which the Greeks call teleion. Moreover, the ancients established as the perfect number that which is called 10, for the number of fingers is from the hands, and from the hand the foot is found. For again, in each hand from the digits, 10 is naturally perfected, and it even pleases Plato that this number is perfect for the reason that 10 is completed by the individual things which are called the monades by the Greeks. However, if 11 or 12 are made, which are more, they cannot be perfect until they reach the second 10. For individual things are small parts of the number. Indeed, the mathematicians, thinking differently, said that 6 is a perfect number because this number has divisions proportionally agreeing with the number. Thus, 1 is 1/6, 2 is a third, half is 3, 2/3, which they call dimoiros, is 4, and 5/6, which they call pentamoiros, is 5, and 6 is perfectly complete. When it grows larger, when a part is added above 6, it is called effectus. When 8 are made, which is a third added on, it is called a second third, or epitritos. When a half is added on, 9, or a whole and a half, which is called hemiolios. When 2 parts are added on and 10 is made again, it is a second 2/3, which they call epidimoiros. In the number 11, because 5 is added, it is 5/6, which they call epipemptos, and 12, which is made from two simple numbers, is called diplasios. And furthermore, they considered it to be perfect because a foot is 1/6 of a human's height, and thus 6 times the length of the foot marks the height of a body because it is completed by that number of feet. And they noticed that a cubit agrees with 6 palms and 24 fingers. From this, the states of the Greeks seem to have made, just as a cubit is equal to 6 palms, the drachma, which is the silver coin they use, equal 6 bronze coins, like our asses, which they call obols. And they establish coins as fourths of obols, which some call decalca and others tricalca. And there are 24 of these 1/4 of an obol coins in a drachma, like the fingers corresponding to cubits. On the other hand, our countrymen at first made the ancient number and established that there were 10 bronze coins in the denarius, and even to today, the denarius retains this origin of its name from this fact. And the fourth part, which used to be made from 2 asses and half of a third, they called the sestertius. Afterwards, our countrymen perceived that both numbers are perfect, namely both 6 and 10. So they combined both into one and made the most perfect number, 16. They found the foot as the authority for this matter. In fact, if 2 palms are taken from the cubit, a foot of 4 palms remains, and the palm has 4 fingers. Thus it comes about that a foot has 16 fingers, and the denarius has as many bronze asses. Therefore, if it is agreed that the number was found from the parts of the human body, and that there is a symmetrical correspondence between the separate members and the entire form of the body, with one part chosen as standard, it remains for us to support those writers who, outlining the temples of the immortal gods, have arranged the members of their works in such a way that the separate parts and the whole distribution harmonize in their proportions and symmetry.